Uh, Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's settle down so that we start the next session. My name's Ano again, and I'll be moderating the next session. I have two speakers, and basically I'm going to ask Uli Raich. He's a retired physicist at CARN, where he used to do practical accelerators, teaching for developing countries since 1981. Of course, he's been involved with an organization called ICRT Trust, where he was teaching at the University of Cape Coast in Ghana in 2017. Uli, please welcome.
Oh, good morning. Now, you see the title of my talk. It says, what is IoT? So if I ask you, what is IoT, what do you tell me? She said it's the Internet of Things. Now, not this one. This is exactly what I expected. You see, if you ask people what is IoT, they will tell you it's the Internet of Things. But what the hell is the Internet of Things? So I don't know anymore, right? You see, IoT has become sort of a buzzword. Everybody's talking about it and nobody really knows what it means. Okay, or at least very few people know really very deeply what IoT is all about. And even fewer people know how to set up an IoT, okay? Well, as he said, I'm a physicist, and physicists always want to know what is behind the things. So I'm one of the persons who hate buzzwords. So let's have a look. Right, you know, it reminds me a bit of a story of a child and an elephant. So the child comes up to me and says, can you tell me what an elephant is? Well, and since I don't really know myself, I tell him, you know, an elephant is a gray animal, which is certainly true. Then if I'm very lucky, then the child will say, okay, that's it, I have my answer, I go away, I don't disturb this guy anymore. He may even think that I'm a clever person because I could answer him that an elephant is a gray animal. But think it over, does he know anything more than he knew before? Well, not really. So what should I have done? The first thing I should have done is to learn about elephants myself, because I didn't know anything about it. The second thing I should have done, I should have told him everything what I know about elephants. Now, learning about elephants, I tried to learn about IoT over the last 12 months, okay? Telling him everything about elephants, now I've got 30 minutes. Telling you everything about IoT in 30 minutes is clearly a challenge, so I'll do my very best of it. And then what I should have done, I should have gone to a zoo, or I should have gone to one of the nature reserves here in East Africa and actually show him a live elephant. Now, bringing a live elephant here in this room is a bit difficult, and you know, taking you all to the zoo would also be difficult. So what I did, I brought a baby elephant. So in fact, a very, very, very simple IoT system. And unfortunately, I cannot make it run here in the lecture hall, but you can come up to me later on and I can show it to you. So this is how it looks like. You see, it's very tiny, okay? And this is my IoT system. So what is IoT? The I, as we said, stands for Internet. And what does it mean for us? If you want to build an IoT system, it means that we need processors, so-called IoT nodes, which are capable of running the Internet or communicating over the Internet. And this in turn means that they must be powerful enough to run the Internet protocols on one hand, and on the other hand, they must be able to actually interface to the Internet in one way or another. Now, what sort of interfaces do we have? We have the Ethernet interface, this everybody knows. Here in this hotel, of course, we have the Wi-Fi interface, this also everybody knows. We can have GSM to connect to the Internet. And one thing that we often forget is that we can have another machine to which we can connect by whatever means, and this other machine can have access to the internet through its interface and connect as a gateway. So these are essentially the four possibilities to talk to the internet. Now, how do we use the internet? Most of you, when you're using the internet, what do? You do web browsing, correct? You do email, you do maybe social media, you may have Skype or telephone chats, etc. Now, all these uses, if you think it over, they are human to machine or human to human communications. Now, with IoT, things are a little bit different because in IoT, we have things that will communicate also without human intervention. So what are things? Well, things can be just about anything. Now, one thing that is very important for physicists is a coffee machine. So coffee machine is a thing. A dishwasher is a thing, a washing machine. But it could be a burglar alarm system, a weather station, scientific measurements, and so on and so on. So you name it. There are plenty and plenty of things in this world. And these things we can actually connect to the internet. Okay. So how does this work? The processor we are using needs some means to know the state of the thing. And it knows the state of the thing through sensors. So you have different types of sensors which tell you in which state your coffee machine is or your burglar alarm system. Let's say your burglar alarm system, there's a burglar coming into your house. He opens the door and the state is going to be that the door is open. So there will be a sensor which tells you if the door is closed or is it open, okay? And depending on this state, your thing will react correspondingly. So this is how to find out the state, but you can also control your system. And this is done through actuators, okay? So these can be, for example, you can switch on or off a pump. You can light some lights, you can print out some text, etc., etc. So all these are actuators. Now the IoT system. We need a system, as we said, with a number of processors that can read out sensors and that can control actuators. That's the first point. The second point, these processors must be able to communicate with each other or with humans over the internet. Second point. So these 2 points we have to keep in mind. This is what we need in order to set up an IoT. Now, we have to make certain design decisions. And the first decision may be, which processor shall we use? The second one, which communication protocol shall we use? Which application shall we use to have a look in which state our IoT is in? Okay, or maybe also control some of the functions of our IoT. Then, which programming language shall we use to make our IoT work? And I think there's always one point which is not only valid in Africa, but also all over the world. How much does the thing cost us? Now, what I want to do first, you know, when I started and tried to have start off my IoT development, I had a look at the application. So let's first have an application, the graphical user interface. And what I found is this thing, okay? You see, this is an application that is called Cayenne. And it says, create your Internet of Things with Cayenne. And down here, unfortunately, you can't read it. Oops, sorry. It says, design prototypes and complete IoT system with the first drag and drop project builder. So this sounds fantastic. You know, you have a certain number of widgets, you pick it up with your mouse, you drop it, your IoT is done. Well, it's not exactly like this. But since it says here, try it, okay, I started to try it. So the first page that I saw is this. So you see, one of the design proposals we said was to find out which processor we want. And here, the system tells me you use a Raspberry Pi or you use an Arduino. Now, these ones are the most common microcontroller or boards that are today on the market. So let's have a look at the Raspberry Pi first. So the Raspberry Pi is a small computer. It's not just a microcontroller. It's really a full computer. It runs even a Unix operating system. It uses a quad-core ARM CPU, 64-bit CPU. So that is really, really powerful. 1 gig of RAM, Ethernet and wireless networks. So you see the connectivity, the interface to the internet we already have because we have Ethernet and wireless interfaces. Then we have 2 USB ports, the micro SD connector to put the operating system on, and we have got a 40-pin extended GPIO connector, it says. Now, GPIO connector stands for General Purpose Input-Output, and so this means that we can actually control our device. So we can read the state, and we can write something, we can make the actuator work. In addition to just simple GPIO pins, it also has got more complex interfaces, the SPI, the Serial Peripheral Interface, and the I2C bus, which is used by very, very many sensors. So the sensor in this case is going to already convert and prepare your data, and then you can read it over this interface. The cost of this device is, well, the board itself, I think, is $35 about. Now you need power supply, you need a few other things, you need the SD card. So let's say it costs you about between $18 and $100. There is one thing that is not so nice. It does not have an analog to digital converter, but to connect that one to one of the GPIO pins is not really a big deal, okay? So is this the ideal machine, the ideal processor for our IoT system? Well, it can be, but it depends on the application. So if you have got an IoT system with plenty of sensors, plenty of actuators, and they're all in the same spot, then this may well be the best solution. But if you come back to our burglar alarm system, so we have, let's say, 20 windows and doors in our house. And the only thing that we want to know is the door open or is it closed? So what do we read out? A single bit. And this one single bit we have to send to a central station, which then treats this information. So our processor, what is it going to do? It's reading a single bit, and this single bit is sent. So for such a type of system, you can imagine that the Raspberry Pi is really absolutely overkill. Okay, so let's have a look at the other one, the Arduino. Well, the Arduino is quite a bit cheaper and quite a bit simpler and quite a bit less powerful. So there are different types of boards. The most common ones is the Arduino Uno and the Arduino Mega. And what I can read you here, there we have flash size of 32 kilobytes. So that is very little as compared to the SD card, which has 32 gigabytes. The RAM is only 2 kilobytes. And what's even worse, there is no network interface. Okay. Now, on the other hand, the way that they built this board is, have a look at these connectors. Oops. These ones. Okay, so these are standardized connectors, and it's done in such a way that you can buy additional boards, piggyback boards, like the one that you see here on the right. Now, this one is a Wi-Fi interface, and this one you can simply plug onto your Arduino. Now, typically this will cost you about $12, $15, so it's quite a bit cheaper, but of course you can do much less. Okay. Well, I tried this and I finally got it to work, but I can tell you to get this Wi-Fi interface working was really, really, really difficult. Okay. So since I finally managed to get it to work, I also understood how it worked. And in fact, what happens is that the two machines, so the Arduino, the host machine, is going to talk to the Wi-Fi shield through a serial interface. And then the Wi-Fi shield does the connection to the internet. You see, the Wi-Fi shield acts as a gateway for our host processor. Okay, and it does this, as I said, through a serial line. Now, on the Wi-Fi shield, we have again another processor. This one, and this one actually has everything that a processor needs. And it has got in its flash a special program which does the communication to our Arduino. So the question is it not possible to just, skip your Arduino altogether and to only use that chip here? this one, you get rid of the program in Flash and you write your own program. So the question is, can we program this thing? And well, it turns out that we can. And if you have a look at the processor, it has Wi-Fi on chip, 10-bit ADC on chip, 80 kilobytes of RAM. So you see a factor of 10 more than the Arduino, 4 megabyte of flash, factor of 8 more than the Arduino. Actually, with this type of performance, you even can run a Python interpreter right on that chip. Again, this is very interesting because quite a few people nowadays program their stuff in Python. Okay, you can also use the Arduino IDE, the integrated development environment, which actually makes the Arduino so popular. You can use it on this processor as well. Has also SPI I2C interfaces, 11 GPIO pins, which normally is enough. And there are many sensor and actuator boards. Only a few of them you see on the slide here. So this here is the processor. And these ones, now these are additional boards which you can plug on top of the processor, and they have actuator and sensor boards. I think I have some 10 or 15 of these different types of boards. Okay, and now if you have a look at the price, well, this is also quite interesting. The CPU card here costs you $2.50. And that's all you need really, okay? Now there is another CPU, which is an ESP32, which is much more powerful. And otherwise it's the same company who produces it. And that one costs you $4.50, okay? Now, I think we now more or less decided on the CPU that we are going to use and on the sensors that we are going to use. Now let's have a look at the communication. Now, very often in IoT, they use a protocol that is called MQTT, which stands for Message Queuing Telemetry Transport. And this is a publish and subscribe-based message protocol, which runs on top of TCP. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means that a processor can subscribe at a broker, as it's called, on a certain topic. So this is the subscription. And then there may be another processor which talks again to the browser and who is going to publish on that topic. Okay, and then the message that is published will be sent to everybody who had subscribed to this type of topic. Okay, now this is how it looks like. And now can I ask to play the first video, please? So, no, just run it. This should run like this. Right, you see, I started a thing that is called Mosquito. Now this is the broker or the post office that you saw before. In this window, I'm subscribing now to the topic afnog-19. And you see the subscription has gone to the broker. Now I subscribe a second time to afnog-18, which again goes, you see, to the broker. And now I have one window where I publish. And I publish first to afnog-19. Now this message is going to go to the broker, so to the post office, the window on the left, which will then pass it on to everybody who has subscribed to this topic. So you see, it's in the window that subscribed, it says the welcome to afnog-19. And the message for the afnog-18 is that unfortunately, you are 1 year late. So, and this is going to go to the second window on the right there, which has the subscribed to afnog-18. Okay. Can we come back?
Hi there.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now, so far, well, now we know the processor we want to use. We know a little bit about the communication. Now let's have a look at the programming language to be used. Now, you have seen that we use a communication protocol And the messages that go over the protocol are simply strings. So the programming language that we can use is any programming language that can generate strings, which means essentially every programming language. Okay? So we can use a programming language, the C, we can use C++, we can use Java, you can use Python, we can use JavaScript, you can, who knows, okay? So all these languages you can use. And for this Cayenne, which we have seen before, we have libraries in C, in C++, in Python, and so on. And so on the ESP8266, which is powerful enough to run Python, we run a MicroPython interpreter, and so we are going to use Python for our programs. And this will show you actually, well, it's probably difficult to see in the back, so I'll tell you what the thing does. It first includes a library, which is the library that connects to the MQTT client, so that generates an MQTT client. Then it defines the Wi-Fi credentials, so the SSID and the password, and it defines a server on which the broker is going to be running, and it defines a topic for MQTT. After that, we are connecting to the Wi-Fi interface. Once that is done, then we generate a client and we connect to the broker. And finally, what we do, we generate, now in this case, it is a temperature value, which is just a dummy value. So I take 28 plus some dummy, okay? And this is going to be sent to the broker. So let me see, can you run the second video, please? So you see on the top left, we have the broker again. And now here, I'm starting this program that I just showed you. It connected to the broker, and now you see it is sending temperature values every second. Okay. Now these are dummy values, but since we have access to sensors as well, we can actually read the sensor and like this, then send this data to the central station, to the broker. And from there to anybody who is interested in, who is subscribed to the corresponding topic. So to show you a very simple IoT, here what we have is an LED which I can switch on and off through an actuator. And beyond the LED, you see a photoresistor, and this photoresistor actually generates a voltage. It provides a voltage divider. And so this pin here, this one, we put onto an ADC. So if the light intensity changes, then this photoresistor changes, the value here changes, and then you will see that in on our IoT system, right? Now, there are already libraries available to read out, to set the pins, to read out the ADC, which makes then the program to write in Python really a child's game. So there are just a few lines of code. So can we have the third? So here you see a bit of a code. You see the LED has gone off. After some time, the program is switched on again. Okay, and then after some time, it's switched off again. And in fact, when it is switched on and off, if you have a look at the, now it's already gone. If you have a look at the intensity, light intensity measured, you will see that this light intensity also changes depending on the intensity of the light that the resistor sees. Now, Cayenne, what does Cayenne actually do? It supplies the MQTT broker, and it uses a dedicated format for topic and payload. And and it also supplies a certain number of widgets for display and for control. So when you subscribe to Cayenne, then what you get is a username, a password, and for every module that you describe, you get what they call a client ID. Now, these things are actually put on top of the topic and allow you to select only those which are allowed for Cayenne. Right. So these are the definitions you see. Oops. These are the definitions that you get from Cayenne. And then what we need to do is to just connect again to the Cayenne broker. And once we have that, then we can write the corresponding values, which you see here. I say a client voltage write. So here I'm sending a voltage value to Cayenne. And this is how it's going to look like. So you see the voltage, in this case, it is the light intensity that I had for my photoresistor, which I see here. Oops. Which I see here. So can we have the last video? Well, just start it from there, it's okay. Just start it. Okay, now let's see, the light is on at the moment. Well, now I've connected to Cayenne. You see, I went online. I have a lamp going on telling that it's dark. Then I'm going to switch the LED on. Here I'm switching the LED on. Okay. After some time, the system will see that there's more light intensity and the blue light is going to go off. Okay. Now I can switch it off again. Now all this is actually can be done from anywhere to anywhere. So we tried the whole thing, me sitting in France and my friend sitting in Ghana, and I can switch the light on and off, and I can actually see what the light intensity on my resistor is. Okay. So the Cayenne allows you also to do so-called triggers, and this is what you see here. So if the light intensity goes below a certain value, then the lamp is switched on. This is what this says. And if the light intensity goes above a certain value, then it is switched off again. So this is what you have been seeing there. So if I switch the lamp off, it takes some time, and then the blue LED will go on. Okay. It's not particularly fast, but usually these type of systems do not need to be very fast. Okay, we can stop it. Right. Okay. Now, in fact, what Cayenne does, it does not only show you the value instantly, but it keeps these values in the history. So in fact, what you see here is the light intensity over a longer period, like when it is switched on and off. So you see the history over the last, I don't know, few hours or so. So this is it for this talk. So if you are interested and you want to know more about IoT, then I must tell you that unfortunately you have missed the tutorial on IoT, which we gave at this conference. But there is a website on which we have all the different information. So this is afnog.iotworkshop.africa. And we also have plenty of demo programs for this type of system, which you find on the repository, the GitHub repository there. And if this is still not enough, then you have to see me for a beer on the bar somewhere. Okay, so that's it.
Thank you so much, Uli. Do we have any questions for Uri? 2 minutes for questions. Any questions? Come on, IoT is interesting. Okay, good question. Just come to the mic.
Yes, thank you, Yuri, for the presentation. It was really nice. Yeah, I'm Ivan Bosa from ISOC, the Uganda chapter. I am so passionate about IoT, and my question is that is also running around wherever people talk about IoT is the security bit of it. What do you have to say about the systems that are coming up as far as IoT is concerned? Thank you.
Well, the security that you have in this Cayenne you have seen is delivered by the username, password, and client ID, which are very strange numbers, okay, long numbers. I cannot tell you if they're encoded because I've never had a closer look on that. But that is how they try to implement security. So it's just through the client ID, the Cayenne username, and the Cayenne password. If those three don't fit, then you don't get access to Cayenne. Does this answer your question?
Okay.
Anything more?
Yeah, one more question.
There is one.
Yes. I'm very interested in the cost bit. So what can we expect in the future for typical small solutions in IoT? I'm sure there are trends that you may be aware of and you want to share. Thank you.
Well, I remember when I did a microprocessor course with a certain Mr. Nick Weiner, we had a microprocessor, which was a 6800, which came out on the market at that moment. So beginning of the 1980s. And I remember that this was a real breakthrough because the machines that we bought at that time would cost you about between $80,000 and $100,000. And that microprocessor chip, only the CPU chip, I think the first version cost about $500, right? Now, the system I have here with about 10 or 15 sensors, with a CPU with 4 megabyte of flash, 80 kilobyte of RAM, where you can already run an interpreter on it, cost you $2.50. And so what I saw is that in the future, they are just about trying to prepare a new microcontroller, which will run, again, a full Linux operating system, and they are talking about $5 for that price. So you see where the price is going to go, okay? You can imagine, I mean, if the $2.50 is too much for you, I also have a similar processor with the sensor already attached to it, and that will cost you, the sensor and the processor will cost you $2.
Okay. Thank you so much, Uri. A round of applause for Uri. Okay, so our next speaker is Jim Forster. You saw earlier on I asked him to stand up when I was basically taking us through the 20 years of AFNOG. And I deliberately didn't want to mention his name because I was going to introduce him anyway. So Jim Forster is basically passionate about extending the internet. He started at Cisco in 1998 when it was quite small and spent 20 years there becoming a distinguished engineer. And while at Cisco, he started working on projects and policies to improve internet access in developing countries. He's been working with several non-profit organizations to extend communication in unserved areas within Africa, in India. And his foundation, networkingtheworld.org, has supported AFNOG, AFCHICS mostly. And he has also invested in 4 ISPs in Africa, from Mawingu Network in Kenya, Too Much Wi-Fi in South Africa, Habari Node in Tanzania, and CTN in Malawi, as well as in India, AirJelly. He and Ben Matanga have started a debt fund, connectivitycap.com, basically to offer loans to ISPs in frontier markets. A round of applause for Jim Forster.
So I realize that with delays that I am standing between us and lunch. I hope I will not get plowed over if we get hungry or something like that. Oh, where's the advance? How do I do this? Oh, here. Okay, good. So Noah had a nice introduction. Thank you. Oops. Here we go. So some of you may have seen this famous shirt that it had the 7-layer models. This was at IETF one time. And they stuck 2 more on there because they said, oh, besides the technical ones, now there's the financial and the political one. Well, today we are here at the financial level. And you say, well, finance is a technical conference. We want to make networks. We don't want, well, finance is important. Dollars are important. The engineer who does not care about dollars probably does not care about how much storage he uses, how much bandwidth he needs. They're all related. So, and my career as I moved from distinguished engineer at Cisco, now a junior business person, I think that, you know, have to keep learning. So I love coming to these things. I learn things at these sort of events. I look back and I realize I've come to AFNOG since about 4 times, 2006 through 9, AFPIF rather. I think it was maybe twice, 17 or 16 and 18. But then I've been 10 years investing in Africa and India, and small companies, technical, recently mostly ISPs, some others too. So more information about those is at iniholdings.com. So a little bit more about these investments. So there's interesting stories about all of them. In AirJaldi in India, and Jaldi is a Hindi word that means hurry up, quick, quick. So it's a good name for a wireless ISP. And the cool thing about that, or one of the cool things, is that we have about 130 people, and most of the staff came in with very little technical skills. AirJaldi trained them. And we now have people that came in with very little, but now are managing 10 people, have technical responsibility for an area, HR responsibility, customer responsibility, revenue responsibility. And they came in with nothing, and now they're doing very well. So that's cool. Kenya, Mwingu, you may have heard about. Microsoft was involved, and I got involved, and it was known as the TV White Space Network. Well, the TV White Space is a fantastic policy initiative, but it hasn't yet been adopted in all countries. So we've gone back to doing regular sort of Wi-Fi, microwave, fiber even. It's great. Another company in South Africa, Too Much Wi-Fi. It's a funny name because have ever of you ever had too much Wi-Fi? Well, that's what they say, we're too much. Tanzania, Habari Node. Some of you know Eric Roberg, he started it, and he said pretty much all his engineers came through this process. So that's how things work. Malawi, we invested in last year. Brian Longway, which was mentioned several times, is, you know, from the early days of AFNOG. He's the founder of the network company called CTN in Malawi. So that's what we're doing in the equity investments. But now there's another way to invest, and we'll talk about that or another. So here's the purpose of this talk. Large ISPs thrive on economies of scale. They get better pricing on bandwidth, they get better pricing on equipment, they get their operations smooth. So how do you do that if you're starting out? You say, well, gee, the big guys are bigger, I can't do it. You can, but you have to watch what you're doing. So the thing is to look at what are your specific financing needs, and what is the consideration of why do you want financing, and what are the different kinds of financing. So what is capital for growth? It depends on where you are in your company cycle. Companies start from somewheres and they go somewhere. Some don't survive, some get big. Now I should, a little side note about community networks. Some of you have heard of, there's a lot of activity. ISOC has been active. It's possibly a way to increase penetration at low cost. Principally, I would say by leveraging social assets. So instead of just purely financial assets and arm's length transactions, the community is heavily involved. So there's a couple of great examples. Internet Society has been leading a big initiative for several years, Africa summits and things like that. And I think they said they have 25 active now in 13 countries. But some of the networks that companies that we've invested in started as community networks. Arusha Node Marie, Eric's company, that was association that was a Tanzanian community network, even before the internet. And then it evolved into, it said, well, we needed to be a little more organized. They organized as a commercial company. Now they have about 100 employees. They host the Arusha Exchange Point. So it's transitioned from a community network, as it were, to a thriving little company. Same thing with Air Jaldi. It started as a community network in 2006. 2009, it was registered as a private company in India, put a little bit of money in it. They've been growing since then. So now about 130 employees in I guess, about 8 states. So talking about company lifestyle, little ones, big ones, this is a sort of generic chart from young to older to small to large. How about an ISP? Well, you start off, sweat equity is what you do. You say, I can do it. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to get 2 pieces of equipment. I'm going to connect them. And then you say, well, okay, we're getting some initial traction. I can maybe borrow some money from my father or my uncle or something like that, or friends will pool together. We'll make something. Or possibly you get some grant funding there. Internet Society has made funds, done some grants. ISIF is a nice organization and process out of the APNIC. Paul Wilson is here, so we're working with them a little bit. Now, if you get some initial success, then is when you might apply for equity funding or try and negotiate equity funding. And however, then if you get going a little bit more, call it takeoff, then you have growth capital. So that's when you have something going on and you know what you're doing and you want to do more. So you've demonstrated some initial success, but you want to expand. That's when you can take growth capital from loans or possibly institutional investors, equity investors. Finally, the last stage, you made it, you're big, you go to the capital markets, you're kind of, well, it's not easy there to stay there, but that's maybe success or final stage. So if you have a network, what do you want to expand it? Where are you in the company life cycle? And what is the true cost of capital? So everyone says, well, I need a loan or I need some investment. What does it cost? It takes time. You're going to spend time working this, months. A CEO of a small company that's going through a funding round, 90% of their time is not running the business anymore. It's talking to investors. Think about that. If you're a CEO of a small company and you want to raise money, the company better run itself because you're going to be out raising money. So, and then what type of control are you willing to give up? Because investors, they want to pay attention. They want to say, no, don't do that. You should do this. So you're going to give up some control. That's the way it is. You take money, you give up some control. Shares, governance. But the funny thing is, the cheapest form of financing is sales. Just sell more. You don't owe anyone. You have full control. And you're demonstrating success. So however you do it, sales is the best financing. Now, let's talk about the different types of financing. Mentioned grants, mentioned equity, mentioned debt. This is quite interesting. So they apply typically at different stages of the company lifestyle. So grants, it's nice, it's non-dilutive, it just comes. The grantees are tolerant of risk. That's why they're doing it, because they want to see new things happen. Difficulty is you have cyclical availability. Some grantees say, well, you missed the window. We just closed last month. Apply next year, please. So wow, 10 months later. There's reporting requirements, sometimes quite heavy. There's restrictions on use. And really what is the other thing about it, others control your fate. You have to say, please, can I have some more money? Well, that's anyhow. Now equity is another form. That's where you're selling shares. And okay, there's no interest payments. That's nice. But there's a longer term expectation. You're going to, be successful later. It dilutes ownership. So you sell 20% of the company, then someone else has got it. And there was also, this is a little tricky. I've come to understand this. Investors want to know, okay, when do I get my money back? So they talk about a liquidity event. There's 2 ways you can get the money back: dividends or a liquidity event. That's when you sell the company to someone else. And now the other form of investment that we've been doing lately is debt. So that's for growth stage. You're up and running, you know your business, your expenses are a little bit less than your income. That's great. If your expenses are less than your income, you can get money. That's what banks are in the business of doing. That's what we're doing. So you do have to make repayments, and there is interest as well. So there's no free lunch. You have to pay this stuff. But it doesn't dilute your company. You're not giving up shares, and it's for a period of time. You pay that back, then great, you're good. So there's trade-offs in all of this: economics, control, transaction costs. The important thing is, why are you doing this? What do you want to do with your company, your ISP? So you got to think about that in the next year and a half, 3 years. Then think, then what will you be financing? Operational losses or network expansion? You want to build a new POP, or you want to put fiber down this section of the town, or you're going to finance customer equipment because they say, because it's, you know, if you were previously asking for installation costs, the customer must buy the CPE. That's a little bit of a barrier. So you could say, if we can finance the customer equipment, then we can provide it as part of the service and it'll come back later. So those are 3 different types. However, operational losses, do not try and finance that. It just won't work. You know, if you're losing money and you borrow money, it's not going to help it. So finally, the last stage is when, where, how. This is detailed. You're looking at your expenses, you're planning how you're going to expand the network. That's where you dig in and say, how are we going to do it? It sounds simple, but you have to have honest answers to this. You have to say, how can we do it? You can't say, oh, well, it'll be great, just give us money. You have to be honest with yourself. Otherwise, you'll be wasting your own time. So my colleague Ben Matranga and I have set up a new thing, a debt fund, and we are in the business of making loans to small companies that want to expand, small ISPs. We only do networking stuff. We don't care about, we don't do fintech, we don't do apps. We do ISPs. So the objective is to expand the capital available for the internet, especially in frontier markets. I learned that term. So roughly you have to be in business for a couple years. We're looking for a turnover of $250,000. You say, gee, I'm not that big, I can't do it. Keep working, get there, come back next year. That's great. We're looking for audited financial and management accounts. Okay, if you're a registered company, you kind of have to do that anyhow. And then you should have appropriate licenses and memberships. So, membership of AFNIC, attendance and these sort of things. We're looking for community engagement, community involvement. So what do we do in this? We're in the business of offering loans, 200,000 to 2 million. Wow, it's a big number, but well, some of you could use it, or some of them are. Some of the people here are from companies that, nah, we don't need that. We're past that. That's great. Term up to 3 months. And flexible arrangements. So we're not asking for, oh, where's the deed to your house or your building? Do you own the building? We're looking at your business, your cash flow. That's a little different. Banks here don't typically do that. But we think we can assess the credit risk by knowing the industry. So how do you do it? Well, let's see. I'll just skip ahead. Here's roughly what it is. Qualification: complete a short outline, a short form online. We'll work with you to identify the options, and if it looks good, then we'll dig in and we'll get into the underwriting process, which is a detailed look at the finances, and then make a decision whether it's go or no go. And to be honest, we expect a lot of applicants, and we expect not so many to complete the cycle. That's okay. Might be come back next year, or do this or this. Keep trying. Don't give up. So you can apply online. There's the URL. My colleague Ben there has some little brochures. Leave him your business card, register online, and get going and build the internet. Thanks all.
Of course, any questions for Jim? Thank you so much. Any questions? Come on, I know we are all mostly layer 1 to layer 7 people. The layer 8 is important, and Jim is telling you to talk to him.
Thank you, Jim. Hello?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Komi, and thank you for this presentation, very interesting. And I would like to hear from you regarding our environment in Africa. What are the main challenges when it comes to developing or expanding business in the ISP world?
Sure. Challenges in Africa, especially ISPs. Well, there's some simple ones. Logistics are difficult. Clearing customs. You cannot, in the US, we can just order Amazon. It comes in 1 or 2 days. Great, it's easy. But more importantly and tougher is the regulatory environment. So there's always challenges there. It's a lot better than it used to be, but the government always wants to help, but sometimes their involvement is less helpful. So I like a nice open environment, and I don't like it when they say, oh, but for security reasons, we need to control the exchange point. That puts me off. That says, well, maybe it's not ready for investment. The government's going to control everything. So I would say the #1 challenge is the regulatory environment. And it varies widely. So you can't say, oh, in Africa is this. It's Kenya, it's Malawi, it's Uganda, it's Rwanda. Each is different.
Okay. Thank you. One last question. Okay, can I? Okay. So do you think there is some value in improving a local trade between African countries?
The trade between African countries?
Yes. Is
Absolutely.
there any value there?
Absolutely. And if I look back from when I first came to Africa, I think it was 2003, everything had to go to a satellite, and then it would go to London, and then it would go back up to the satellite and come down. Now there is pretty good cross-border fibers. Needs to be much, much more. That's cross-border trade. And then there can be cross-border commerce. There certainly is cross-border money transfer. And yes, absolutely. And the internet enables that, as well as do roads. We need roads too. So
thank you.
Okay, we are running a little bit late, but I would like to kindly request that you stay for just one more last thing. We have some fake news, and I would like to call Alain to come and take us through the fake news.
So actually, this is not about fake news. Okay, so it's about what we call the African Secret Working Group. Do you know what the African Secret Working Group is? No? Okay, but at least you know what is the working group. But the secret one seems to be a bit complicated for you. Okay, so don't worry. Sorry? Yeah, you can treat. You take that is at your own risk. So, so anyway, I'm not a member of the secret working group, and I don't know the members. So, what's happening is that every year, magically, some slide set come to my laptop, and I've been forced to present. So. Okay, so what is the African Secret Working Group? So this is the official definition of the African Secret Working Group. Okay, it's a non-for-profit. Okay, and etc. Full deniable. So that means everything you hear here should stay in this room, and don't come and talk to me. Don't ask questions. So you guys be enjoying the 20 years, okay, and being very happy, okay. So I do remember, like in 2001, you started the strike against techno-colonialism. So I hope you make some progress, okay. But so please keep going. But we do also remember the books, okay, the books. The routers and the setups, the computers that Jan showed this morning, but you have to see something. At that time, the NOC were juice compliant, but now these days, all the NOC are whiskey compliant, no more juice. Okay, no more juice at all. It's whiskey. We also remember this thing, you saw this, so I will not spend time again on it, but there is something you need. It was difficult in Lome to train you guys to say afnog success. Maybe I should go back and play it again. Okay, and you know the gentleman who is trying to organize this track. Okay, it was a very good one. And since Lome, we keep using the afnog success. But it was not easy at that time. You can see. We have to try many times before we get afnog success. So, what next? There is a new policy proposal about food and drink waste, because it looked like the secret working group noticed that you guys waste food and drink during the cocktail and cocktail and gala dinner. So this is the problem statement. This is how we address the problem, and there are also some pro and con. Okay, so the con is that we may lose some participants. Okay, but I think so we have to balance the pro and con. And if you want to send comment or support this to this policy proposal, send email to the secret working group. IPv6. Your IPv6 is still very bad. You are still here. The whole continent is still. But you keep saying afnog success, Afrinic and avant, but your IPv6 is going nowhere. But we know the reason. Instead of focusing on IPv6, you guys are focusing on IPv dollar. So you are just moving the IPv4 to IPv dollar. You've been trading IP among yourself. You can see from 2018, now there are some transfer going on intra-area. So instead of moving to IPv6, now you are focusing on the IPv dollar. Okay, so maybe we need to see how we can get some of the dollars, okay, to help the community networks. But because you need more IPv4, the working group went to dig in the global market and noticed that if you saw the trend going on in the market, you can see like who we call the Uncle Sam. You know Uncle Sam, right? Uncle Sam is here. Uncle Sam, you can see like the numbers are moving from Uncle Sam to the other region. You can see million moving here, million and thousand only moving here. But Uncle Sam still refused, okay, to adopt one-way transfer policy so that the Africa can also get some. Because we said if you want to get some, you should also allow us to take some. But if you look at these numbers, then we should convince Uncle Sam that it should be one way, not not two ways. It should be one way anyway. It should be one way. You can see it must be one way. Next, there is also a new global policy. For those who are active on Afrinic, RPD, you can notice that this is the first time we will be discussing 15 policy proposals. So that means there are some authors who are just abusing and submitting too many proposals. So then the community reacted, said, no, we need the policy called global author policy violation. So if you want to submit so many policy, you have to follow a certain rule, and you must also be willing to respond on all leaks within a maximum of 6 minutes. So, and make sure that the time zone does not count. You have to be up every day and responding to policy proposal. Otherwise, people don't have time to discuss the policy proposal, then the whole thing gets stuck. So you may, this was sent to the secret working group, okay? And we are still discussing it. So please send your comment also to the secret working group. Then next, the secret working group has a global policy meeting, and you can see how it works these days. After the presenter asks for questions, you quickly say, I oppose, I support, I strongly oppose, I oppose those who oppose. So you can imagine then how the coaches suffered. Coaches said, impulsive consensus, the meeting is adjourned. Then we all go home. Okay. Now this is a bit technical. Okay, so the root zone management people but he finally managed to change the root KSK. Okay, so it was a big achievement for those who have been following. So we want to thank the community for doing that, for changing and moving us from the KSK 2010 to KSK 2017. But now what we are doing, we are now trying to kill the old KSK, because if you know key management, after you retire a key, you have a whole system how you destroy the key. Okay, so we are doing things. We open the safe, taking out the SSM, and then running this thing to remove the key from the SSM, then put back the SSM to the safe. So we are killing the KSK 2010, but we ask them to show respect to the KSK because the 2010, because at the beginning it was not obvious. So many people did not really believe in that KSK DNS sector. So, well, you guys keep making progress, okay? I hear AR, IoT, etc. So this is where you are now. The human are hooked, busy, like this I can see. All of you, even when you are eating, then the machines are learning to take over. Oh, sorry. The machine are learning to take over. You can see that machine now, I'm even learning mathematics, all of these things. So then the machine soon will take over. Then you guys keep enjoying your apps, your tools, etc. So don't worry. Then it looked like we're heading to something. We're heading to someone called Homo informaticus. So we came from Homo sapiens, right? Now these people are taking us to something we call the Homo informaticus. So soon we will have a human being, connected to the cloud. To the cloud. So you see how from here you'll be even here. Now you want to go here, so that means okay. The mind will be maybe you put some IoT, whatever it is, but you see where you are heading to. Then this is what we are calling Homo informaticus. But the problem for you in Africa is that Homo sapiens came from Africa. So then Homo informaticus also must come from Africa. Otherwise, you are in trouble. Okay. So thank you very much. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Alain. Okay. I would like to apologize again for the time, and I guess we can break for lunch, which will be served down at the ground floor. Thank you so much, and see you in the afternoon. Basically at around 2, we should be back for the third session. Unless if anyone has questions for the Secret Working Group. Okay.